every story leaves something behind. A whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves.
3 terrifying true taxi driver stories are coming up. These are real accounts sent in by viewers who drive people through the darkest hours of the night. There's something uniquely vulnerable about being alone in a car with a stranger, and something even worse when the stranger isn't what they seem. Let's get into it. This first story was sent in by a night shift driver in Memphis. He calls it the address that moved. What starts as a routine late-night pickup turns into something that doesn't quite add up. And the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. The GPS said I'd arrived, but the house number on the mailbox was wrong. Not wrong like I'd misread it. Wrong like someone had pried the old numbers off and hammered new ones on within the last few minutes. The nails were still shiny. I'd been driving nights in Memphis for about 3 years at that point. You get used to the weird ones. College kids who throw up in the back seat. Drunks who forget where they live. The occasional fare who wants to talk your ear off about conspiracy theories. None of that bothers me anymore. But this night was different. The pickup request came in around 2:15 in the morning. A residential address on the east side, a neighborhood I knew pretty well. Quiet streets, older homes, big yards with overgrown hedges. When I pulled up, the porch light was on, and someone was standing at the end of the driveway. A man, maybe mid-40s, wearing a polo shirt and khakis like he'd just come from a casual dinner. He had a duffel bag. He got in the back without saying anything. I confirmed the destination, an address about 22 minutes south, near the industrial district. He nodded, didn't speak. About 5 minutes into the ride, I glanced in the rearview and noticed he wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking out the window either. He was staring directly at the back of my headrest, not at me in the mirror, at the headrest itself, like he was studying the stitching. I asked if he was doing okay. He said yes. His voice was completely flat, not tired flat, empty flat. 10 minutes in, I heard a sound from the back seat, a slow, deliberate zipping sound. He was opening the duffel bag. I glanced back and he had his hand inside it, but he wasn't pulling anything out. He was just holding something in the bag. His knuckles were white. The GPS told me to turn onto an access road I didn't recognize. That happens sometimes with updates. New roads get added, but this road had no streetlights, no markings. The pavement turned to gravel after about a quarter mile. I told him I didn't think this was right. He said keep going. There was something about the way he said it. Not aggressive, not threatening, just certain, like he already knew I would keep going, and the words were a formality. The road ended at a small clearing. There was a house there, but it didn't look lived in. The windows were covered with something from the inside. Plastic sheeting, maybe. The porch light was on, and the bulb was the exact same color as the one at the pickup address. That same specific amber. He got out, took the duffel bag, and walked toward the house without paying. The app showed the ride as completed. Paid in full. 5-star rating already submitted. I hadn't even put the car in park yet. I drove back to the main road as fast as I could. When I checked the trip history the next morning, the pickup address and the drop-off address were the same. The same exact address. But I know I drove 22 minutes. I know the odometer moved. And I know that house at the end of the gravel road was real, because when I got home, there was red clay on my tires. Memphis doesn't have red clay. Not in the city. I never got another request from that address. But about a month later, I was scrolling through the local news and saw a story about a house on the east side where neighbors reported a smell. The house number matched the original pickup address. Police found the home empty. No furniture, no belongings, just a single duffel bag in the center of the living room floor. The article didn't say what was in it. And the next story is a bit different, and honestly, it's one that stuck with me. A driver in Albuquerque sent this in. He calls it the fare who gave directions to nowhere. If the first story made you uneasy, this one is where things start to feel genuinely wrong. She told me to turn left, but the street she pointed to didn't exist 3 hours ago. I know because I'd driven past that exact spot at the start of my shift, and it was a concrete wall. I drive a taxi in Albuquerque, have for 11 years. I work the late shift 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. and I know every street in this city the way you know the rooms of your own house. I know which intersections have potholes. I know which traffic lights take too long. So when a road appears where there wasn't one before, I notice. The woman had flagged me down outside a bar on Central around 1:30. She was calm, well-dressed, not drunk. Mid-30s maybe. She didn't give me a destination. She said she'd direct me turn by turn. That's not unusual. Some people don't know addresses, they just know the route. First few turns were normal. East on Central, north on Carlisle. Standard stuff. Then she told me to take a right on a street I'd never heard of. I looked and there it was. A narrow street with no sign, cutting between two buildings I've driven past 1,000 times. I would have sworn on anything that street did not exist. I took it. I don't know why. Maybe because she said it so casually, like it was obvious. The street was long, longer than it should have been given the blocks on either side. The buildings on both sides had no doors, no windows on the ground floor, just smooth stucco walls stretching on and on. My headlights were the only light source. She told me to take another left, then a right, then straight for a while. Each turn took us onto a road I'd never seen. My GPS had stopped updating about 2 turns back. The blue dot just sat there, frozen on Central Avenue, while the real car moved through streets that didn't appear on any map. I started to say something and she said don't stop. Same tone, not a threat, an instruction like a nurse telling you to keep your arm still. I looked in the rearview mirror and her face was wrong. Not deformed, not inhuman, just wrong, like the proportions had shifted slightly since she got in. Her eyes were a little too far apart. Her mouth was a little too low. It was subtle enough that I couldn't be sure I wasn't imagining it, and that was worse than if it had been obvious. The meter had stopped working. The numbers on it were frozen at $12.40, but I could hear the mechanism still clicking inside the housing. Clicking faster than normal, way faster. She told me to pull over. We were on a street that looked residential, but every house was identical. Same color, same layout, same dark windows. There must have been 30 of them stretching in both directions. Not similar, identical, the same crack in the same spot on every driveway. She got out and walked toward one of the houses. I didn't see which one because I was already turning around. The streets back were different. The turns I'd taken weren't there anymore. I drove in what felt like circles for almost 40 minutes before I suddenly came out on a road I recognized. Lomas Boulevard near the fairgrounds, miles from where I should have been. My GPS came back immediately. The trip wasn't logged anywhere. No record of the fair in the system. My dashcam footage from that window of time was just static. 45 minutes of gray static with a faint sound underneath it that I can only describe as breathing. The meter was working fine, but it had reset to 0, and when I checked the total for the night, I was missing exactly $12.40 from what I should have earned. I've driven past the spot on Central where that street appeared. There's nothing there, just the concrete wall, but sometimes, on very late nights, I swear the wall looks thinner than it should, like there's light behind it. Okay, this last story is the one that genuinely disturbed me the most out of these 3. A cab driver in Pittsburgh sent this in, and I'll let you decide what to make of it. He calls it the passenger in the footage. I want to warn you, this one doesn't end the way you'd hope. I watched the dashcam footage back 3 times before I accepted what I was seeing. There was someone in my back seat for the entire shift. 7 hours, and I had been alone. Let me back up. I drive a cab in Pittsburgh. I've been doing it for about 6 years. A few months ago, my company installed new dashcam systems. Dual cameras, one facing the road, one facing the interior. They record the entire shift and upload to a cloud server. Standard liability stuff. I never watched my own footage. No reason to. But one morning after a Thursday night shift, my dispatcher called and asked me to review a clip from around 3 a.m. He said the interior camera had flagged something during a routine audit. He sounded strange, not concerned exactly, more like he didn't want to describe what he'd seen and was hoping I'd have an explanation. I pulled up the footage on my laptop. The 3 a.m. timestamp showed me sitting in the driver's seat at a gas station. I remembered that stop. I'd gone in to buy coffee. You can see me get out, walk into the store, come back 2 minutes later. In the footage, when I get out, the back seat is empty. When I come back and open my door, there's someone sitting behind the passenger seat. A man. thin, pale, wearing what looks like a dark jacket. His head is tilted slightly to the left, and he's looking directly into the interior camera. Not at me, at the camera, like he knows exactly where the lens is. I watch myself get in, start the car, and drive away. I never look back. I never react. In the footage, I clearly have no idea anyone is there. I scrubbed backward through the footage. The man appears the moment I leave the frame to walk into the gas station. One frame, the seat is empty. The next frame, he's there. No door opens. No movement. He's just there, fully seated, already looking at the camera. I scrubbed forward. He stays in the back seat as I pick up my next fare. A college kid going to the south side. The kid gets in the back seat. He sits on the opposite side from the man. In the footage, the kid never looks at the man, never acknowledges him. The kid is on his phone the entire ride. He gets out and the man is still there. I pick up 2 more fares over the next few hours. Same thing. They get in. They sit within 2 feet of this figure. Nobody reacts. Nobody looks at him. He doesn't move. His head stays tilted at that same angle the entire time, and his eyes stay fixed on the camera. Except once, at 4:47 a.m., I'm stopped at a red light on the Birmingham Bridge. In the footage, I yawn and adjust my mirror. For just a second, my eyes would have been pointed at the back seat through the rearview. At that exact moment, the man closes his eyes. His face goes slack. He looks like an empty seat, like a shadow, like nothing. The light changes. I look back at the road and his eyes open again. Immediately, back to the camera. He knew when I was looking. The footage ends at 6:14 a.m. When I pull into the depot to end my shift, I get out, walk around the car, open the back door to check for left belongings like I always do. In the footage from the interior camera, he's still sitting there when I open the door. I lean in. My face is less than a foot from his. I look around the back seat, grab a receipt someone left behind, and close the door. He's gone the next frame, same as he arrived. No movement, no door, just gone. I showed the footage to my dispatcher. He'd already seen it. He asked if my camera had a glitch, a rendering artifact. I told him artifacts don't close their eyes when you check the mirror. He didn't have a response for that. I requested footage from my other shifts that week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He was in all of them, every single shift. Same seat, same tilt, same eyes on the camera. On Monday's footage, he appears at 10:16 p.m. the moment my shift starts. He's there before my first fare. I stopped watching after Monday. I didn't want to check the week before that. I didn't want to know how long he'd been there. I still drive. I have to. It's my income, but I don't check the mirror anymore. I know that sounds insane, but I have a reason. The last footage I watched from Wednesday, there was one moment I almost missed. At 2:30 a.m., while I was driving with no passengers, the man did something he hadn't done in any other footage. He smiled, and then he raised one hand slowly and pointed at the interior camera, right at the lens, like he was saying, "I know you're watching now." I returned the dashcam footage access to my dispatcher and told him I didn't want the login anymore. He asked why. I didn't answer. Some things get worse when you look at them. I think he's still in my back seat every night. I think he's there right now. And I think the only thing keeping this arrangement safe is that I've agreed to stop looking.
And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.